So our next speaker is Brad Staples. He'll be speaking on the rise of C-commerce and how to convert everyday customers into lifelong influencers. So Brad currently serves as the VP of Marketing for Vooray. They are a brand specializing in athletic bags and accessories. Prior to Vooray, he spent time at Overstock.com and Domo. Brad received his undergrad degree in business from Brigham Young University, Idaho, and later received an MBA from the University of Utah. He currently resides in Logan, Utah, with his wife and 3 sons. So, Brad, if you're here, if you want to hop on in, turn your mic and camera on, and we'll let you start.
Is this working?
It is. Perfect. I can hear you. Everyone else can hear him.
And am I going to mess things up if I share my screen, or should we go off the deck as you guys uploaded it?
I think they both work. I know that the quality comes through a little bit better if you use the deck we uploaded, and if you have issues with that, then we can just share.
We'll use the deck. I like my animations, but we'll be okay just using the deck. So I caught the tail end of that last presentation, and it actually got me super excited to be talking to this audience. I want to start by thanking you guys. I don't know if professors in marketing understand how crucial recent graduates are to the job market, specifically for small and medium-sized businesses. People in my position rely so heavily on these graduates coming out hungry, but most importantly, knowledgeable. And a lot of you guys come from industry. You guys have been in my shoes before. One of the best advice I got from a marketing professor at BYU-Idaho was, if you're going to be in marketing, make sure your running shoes are on and tied tight. And it changes so fast, it evolves so quickly, that I get thrilled with conversations like this, where we can bring some of what we might consider real-time evolutions in those marketing trends and really put them back in your guys' hands. So what we're going to be talking about today is something that is may not be relatively new to some of you people, but we've certainly seen some trends shifting, specifically in the landscape of influencer marketing and community marketing. And at Vooray, we've been putting some things in place that have been working really effectively that we thought would be important to kind of share back with you guys. How you work that in your curriculum, I'm going to try and cruise through this deck so we can have some more conversations about that. But real quick, how do I access my deck? Oh, sharing options. Here we go. Hey, there we go. So when I first joined Vooray, I was in a sales capacity. So I was running our sales team. We were a dang near a brand new company. We were trying to meet with big accounts like Dick's Sporting Goods and Nordstrom's and big running store chains. And I remember watching it with Jerry Maguire, and there was this great clip in there where it said, a key to this business is personal relationships. But nobody says that about e-commerce, right? And the reason is that personal relationships are dang near impossible to automate and scale, right? You can do it in sales, you can do it on a one-on-one basis, but it's really difficult to do when you're responsible for hundreds of thousands of customers. You can't have personal relationships with a lot of them. And what I'm going to talk about today is hopefully a way that marketers can start to bridge that gap without exploring one-on-one relationships, certainly create more personality in the relationships they have with their customers. At the end of the day, the reason that's so important is that a transaction only happens when your customers trust you. And so I found an interesting infographic here that I want to start with. And excuse all the boxes. I had some really cool animations set up with this, but bear with me here for a minute. So what you're looking at is various sources of information that a brand can use to get the word out about what they're doing. And the bar on the right shows how much customers actually trust those sources. So I'm focusing on, if you look at that yellow box, it's wrapping around those 4 right there. Those are the 4 that are being used by customers the most. The one obviously that stands out the most is the fact that most people trust friends and family when considering, right, something to buy. No surprises there. What's interesting is that half of a typical ad budget for a brand goes into this advertising budget right here, which, if you're looking at this chart, has the lowest trust factor on the board. This is not news for anyone who's in branding. They know that when you spend money on an advertisement, it's going out there and it's not necessarily the most trustworthy source. And yet a massive amount of our budgets are being allocated in this area. And for a lot of marketers, what they're trying to do is bridge the gap between the lowest trust factor with the highest trust factor. And the most obvious way for brands to do this is through influencer marketing. And a quick kind of history on influencer marketing, because this is still a relatively new space for us. So think about Facebook when it first hit the scene. Extremely high trust factor because brands weren't screwing it up yet, right? Facebook gets bigger, starts introducing ads. All of a sudden on your feed, you're seeing more advertisements. All of a sudden you've got friends who are starting to promote certain things. And your trust factor starts to diminish a little bit. You're not trusting everything you're seeing on that platform. Then they acquire Instagram, which prior to Facebook's acquisition of it, had that same kind of trust factor. If somebody was on there, screaming from the rooftops about a certain product they loved, it sold out in seconds. And to this date, if Kate Middleton or Kim K posts something product related, it is sold out in seconds, right? That trust factor still exists on that platform, but it's starting to diminish again. Now you have TikTok. I know one of the presentations today is on TikTok, and I'm excited to see what they had to say about that. But same type of thing. This one, the trust factor is actually diminishing much faster than what we saw with Instagram. And the reality is that more and more people are considering influencer marketing a career. And it's sort of ruining the space, so to speak. So what do brands do about that? How do they continue creating that trust factor when you've got this diminishing return on what influencers can do for your brand? Because at the end of the day, they can smell the bull. So like we've fallen into this trap, right? I mean, you're in a small brand, you do whatever you can to get the word out. So you go and find people that have these massive followings, you send them a bag. In a lot of cases, you're paying out the nose for it. I'm trying to remember the rate, but it's something like, in the ballpark of roughly $1,000 for 100,000 followers, right? Is what a lot of influencers are charging now. Pretty expensive. Now, typically on that, if you're tracking it, it is on average around a 5x return, which is typically better than what you're getting through an advertising budget and a strategy there. So might still make sense, but customers were smelling the bull. In other words, we were seeing over the course of several years, lower and lower returns every time we would do this. And then something interesting happened. We had this bag. This is the Alana duffel. It was an expensive bag for us in our market, right? Vooray is, from the get-go, we were very much kind of a middle-class price point bag brand. We wanted to produce super high quality, but not break our customers' wallets with really high prices. So we came in at really competitive price points. Our AOS was more like $45, and this thing retailed at $85. So it was a really expensive bag, had slow burn rates. We're like, this isn't working. Our existing customer base isn't chomping on this thing. Let's cut it. And beginning this year around January, something crazy happened. We literally woke up one morning and we sold like 220 of these things, just like that. And it took us a few days to realize what had happened. And in introducing Holly Gabriel here, Holly's a nurse. She also happens to have a very athletic kind of side hustle. And so she has this Instagram feed, which had about, at the time, I think it was 70,000 followers there. And she did an Instagram story talking about how much she loved her new Vooray bag, using it as both a nursing bag and a gym bag. Well, she had a highly engaged audience that jumped all over this thing. Blew us out of stock, and we could not figure out what happened. So once we realized what had happened, the first thing we did is, all right, let's do this again. We went out and found every sort of fitness nurse we could find in the space, same type of thing, get them a bag in their hands, here's what this one did, do a story, say this, could not replicate the success. The reason was, and this is more theoretical than you can put facts around, but the story they were telling was not real. It was not authentic. They hadn't actually bought the bag themselves. They hadn't created their own story in their mind about why they like the brand they could then go convey to their customer. The trust factor was missing from this. So we obviously kind of went back to the drawing board, and I heard a story from a good friend of mine about Tesla. And this is really where the concept of C-commerce comes into space. C-commerce stands for customer commerce. And essentially what it entails is your customers becoming your vehicle for acquisition. Instead of spending a ton of money on ad dollars, instead of using traditional influencers out there, leveraging the power and the authenticity of your own customer base to drive acquisition for your brand. And not in theory, but in trackable, tangible means. So Tesla, if anyone's been watching this company, it's hard not to. Elon's in the news all the time, but bottom line is these guys are crushing the auto industry right now. Funny thing is they actually don't produce that many cars, and yet their valuation is higher than any of their competitors. They do not spend money on ads, right? You have car companies right now, GM, Ford, spending billions of dollars a year on traditional advertising, TV spots, sponsorships, things like that. Tesla doesn't spend a dime of it. What they do is leverage the power of their customers. If you own a Tesla, you probably have a little app on your phone. And in that app, there is a space where you can share a code with a friend. They don't incentivize that. They don't promote it. In fact, they don't even tell you it's there. But for those customers that are, you can see someone's got the app right there. If you've ever used it and you used it enough, Tesla notices. And they reward you in a very, very personal and authentic way. My friend told a story that he'd had a few people, I think 3 people, buy a Tesla on his code. Next thing he knows, there's a bunch of Tesla Power Wheels showing up in the mail to him, delivered to his doorstep, 1 for each of his kids. 2 of them were blue, 1 was pink. He had 2 sons, 1 daughter. Well, if you weren't a fan of Tesla before that, I promise you're not going to buy another car but Tesla the rest of your life, right? That shows a level of personality, personal relationship that you just don't see from a car manufacturer. So I heard that story and thought, man, how can brands do more of that? How can we start creating those types of relationships with our customers? And the most important question is, how do you scale that, right? Now, I don't imagine there's a ton of people referring, 10, 20 people back to Tesla. So it's probably pretty easy for them to keep their tabs on who's referring things and having a very personal reward for them. But the bottom line is that you have to build a community. Tesla did a great job of this. They've got a community of people who share very common values, and they've wrapped themselves around these people. If I could go back right now and sit in front of a class and say, if you're starting out as a new brand, one of the very first things you need to do from the gates is create a community of people that share those common values and over deliver to that group. So the first thing you've got to do in here is identify the why in front of your brand. If COVID taught us anything, it's that if you're selling a product and you haven't convinced your customer that you have more value for them outside of that product, you're going to fail in a period of time like COVID. You have to give them something to hang on to when your product doesn't matter, when your product isn't relevant for them. In the case of a gym bag, there's only so many times in your life you're going to need a new gym bag. We understand that. So we have to be bringing things to the table that are important and valuable to our customers every day of the week, so that when they're in the market for a new bag again, we're the only brand they're thinking about, right? That's like marketing 101. No one listening to this is surprised by that, but there are a lot of brands who still cannot wrap their heads around this. When you're in a bull market, it's too easy to just be crushing through product and selling it. And these are things you leave off the table, right? What happens when money becomes tight and people start buying? How do we keep engaging with our customers if all they know is our what? And we've never helped invest in the why. So I tell most brands, if you don't know what your why is, focus on your VIPs. Your VIPs should be your experts. This is where the trust factor exists, right? This is why the Tesla model works so well. If you own a Tesla, just by driving that car, you are sending a message about certain beliefs you have, right? About the environment, about sustainability, about speed, let's be honest. And so I think when you build that tribe around those experts, again, if you can make their why your why, it becomes really sticky. And the trickle down effect to the rest of your customers becomes very natural from there on out. The next thing you got to do is identify your platform. There are a myriad of them out there. For our purposes, we've found that Facebook groups tend to work the best. Right now, of all the platforms you can use to build a community, Instagram's cool. The problem with Instagram is that the algorithm right now is giving so much precedence to ad that when you post something, as an example, we've got 100,000 followers on Instagram. Our average post gets to maybe 7,000 of those. There's so much noise on there right now that if you really want to create engagement, you've got to think to platforms that have high engagement rates. Right now, Facebook groups are the best ones to do that. There's email, there's text message. Actually, a lot of brands are turning to SMS as a way to engage with those folks, but nobody can see those conversations outside of the one-on-one transaction. Facebook groups are great because everybody can see those conversations, everybody can take part in them. So again, identifying the platform is really important there, and then scaling it with consistency. The biggest mistake brands make is they jump in with both feet on something, get customers jazzed on it, and then they don't stay consistent with it. They don't scale it properly. If you invest in something, you got to see it through. Your customers, they're not signing up for your brand for a roller coaster ride. And so when you commit, put both feet in and stay there and really kind of work through it. So those, I think, are those keys to building that community. And essentially I kind of want to talk about the way we've been doing this, because once you have that community, the next question is, all right, what do we bring to the table here? So we decided to go two routes. We have two communities. One is our VU crew. The biggest distinguisher here is that these are verified customers, right? So you buy a Tesla, you're in this community of people, you know that anybody else in that community owns a Tesla. That's important for us because we want these conversations to be more around relatively kind of our what we're doing as a brand, things like that. Everyone that joins gets 20% off for life. They can also share that code with friends and family. We do not commission it. We don't incentivize it. We don't tell them to go and share it. We simply say, if you'd like to spread the word, great. If not, great. Same benefits across the board. You're not going to be lacking as a customer or as a member of this community one way or the other. We do a ton of sneak peeks with them, a lot of behind the scenes stuff with the brand. This is a way for us to basically take the best customers we have and make them even stronger. The trainer community is the one I really want to focus on here because this is our VIP. These are our experts. If you think about our industry right now, you don't need a gym bag if you're not going to the gym. And when COVID hit, our industry took a massive slap across the face. It was a really difficult few months. We're still growing out of that transition right now. We saw a massive shift to digital and at-home fitness. Some of that will stick and stay. But the reality is we had to figure out a way to, again, stay relevant with our customers in a period of time where our products were not the answer they needed. And what we found is that wrapping ourselves around these instructors, we created a network of commonality that they thrived in. Gyms, independent gyms, have no incentive to, for lack of better terms, crossbreed with other instructors in their gyms, right? It's competition. But what we found is that the instructors wanted to talk to other instructors. They wanted that network, but nobody was bringing it to them. Nobody was giving them a platform where they could engage with other fitness professionals. So we piloted it right here in our backyard, Salt Lake City, Utah. We got about 50 instructors, and the early results were fantastic. They were absolutely jazzed about being able to meet up with other instructors, have that collaboration, talk about what gyms are doing well, which ones are closed, which ones are hiring, which ones are firing. And the biggest piece for us is that we had experts who knew what we were doing as a brand and could feel the love and the investment we had for them. These are the people who are going to bring people back to the gym when it's safe and appropriate to do that. And again, our end consumer is going to trust a fitness professional way more than they will me, anything from my brand. So we wanted to wrap ourselves around these people. The results have been really, really cool. This slide didn't work too well because there's some great animation here. Let me try and explain what's going on here. What we found is that most brands, when they think about influencer marketing, throw money at it. your customers know the difference between a marketing strategy that costs you money versus one that costs you time. And they value the time 10 times more than a financial investment. So rather than throw money at these influencers and trainers, we threw time at them. We really invested in the relationships, understanding who they are, acknowledging, frustrations they were having, and then actually going to bat on solving some of those problems for them that had nothing to do with a gym bag, right? We wanted to invest in these guys in a way where they felt like this is a brand who goes above and beyond supporting this community. What we found is that as we've done that, as we've invested time into these VIPs, the referral side of it, them talking about the brand in a positive light, has been so natural and so organic that it's actually working, crazy enough, way, way, way better than traditional influencer marketing, which is go out, find someone with 700,000 followers, get them to post about your product and share a code. So much so that over the last little bit, referral revenue from these trainers alone have become 25% of our total revenue. To put that into perspective, our ad budget, which for us is actually closer to about 60% of our total marketing budget, on average is bringing in about 50%. So to have something that costs me nothing but time, bringing in now 25% of our total revenue was monster. And obviously a lot of running room there. We have trainers producing content for our brand for free. We have them sharing their codes with friends and family for free. Our retargeting campaigns are performing much better because the type of lead coming to our site is much more qualified. So all of a sudden, the money we are spending on ads is improving its rate of return significantly. Our social media, which is starting to wrap itself around more, these trainers, is getting way more engagement, right? The right people are seeing the right content at the right time. And we're seeing that in our engagement rates there. And if we're being honest, guys, it's a heck of a lot more fun marketing this way than just throwing dollars out there and seeing what sticks. This has been so rewarding for us. I'm a relationship guy, and that might be my sales background, but I think it's so much more fun to build a brand when you have these really tight connections and understanding of who your customer is. We've made so many friends in the fitness industry, and I mean that sincerely. We've created really lasting relationships with some of these influencers that for me go above and beyond what I'm doing from a business perspective, and it's been really fun and rewarding. So for me, if it was apples to apples in terms of return, I would do it this way all day long. So a couple of key takeaways that I think are kind of important to note here. So CAC, if that's a new one for you guys, customer acquisition costs are on the rise. Brands are facing this challenge right now. If you've been watching recent IPOs, a lot of the IPOs from these unicorn brands are happening because their CACs are upside down. They're spending more money to acquire new customers than they're actually making on those customers, hoping that in some future time they're going to make that money back. But anyone coming into marketing needs to understand how all the costs associated with acquiring new customers impact your bottom line. And so all we're talking about today funnels back to this CAC, this idea of what does it cost you really to bring in a new customer? I will stand on a rooftop and shout this: micro-influence. I consider micro-influencers as 20,000 followers or less. They have way, way better results than macro-influencers, people with, essentially over 50, 100,000 followers. Obviously at volume, but their engagement rates are still so impressive. And there's a trust factor there that you lose when you're working with people that have Kardashian-like followings. The next thing I'll preach is your customers are going to be your best influencers. And if you don't think you have big influencers in your customer database, you would be, brands would be surprised. We invested in a platform that allowed us to see who was purchasing from us and what the social followings of those people were. We were blown away to find that we had people buying our products that had millions of followers out there. I'm not going to reach out to that person and ask them to start preaching our brand because they're going to charge me too much money. But it went to prove we have really influential people coming and buying our products. And chances are, if we did a better job of, for lack of better terms, loving these people outside of just the transaction, they might do some of this, sharing and referring for a lot less or free. So I think your customers are going to be your best influencers, and the way to do that is to build those communities. If you don't know what your why is in that factor, make it your VIP's why. There's a lot of easy research you can do to figure out what matters to these people. Make that the heart of your brand. And I'm a weird kind of self-development guy in this space, but the whole givers gain, takers lose concept in marketing right now could not be more true. If you are in a position where you don't feel like you are over-delivering on the transaction, over-delivering on expectations, you'll have a competitor come in and put you out of business. I can guarantee it. So givers gain, takers lose. Give your customers way more than they expect in transactions, and they'll stay with you. And kind of closing up with, as much as people say that personal relationships can't be scaled in e-commerce, I would disagree wholeheartedly. And I think it's still, because of that trust factor precedes the transaction, is the key to a brand success. Build those relationships with your customers, invest there. That's where the value of your brand really starts to exist. And we've seen tremendous results from it. So I cruise through that just because I think time would be better spent addressing some of the questions you guys might have. But that in a nutshell is what we're working on at Vooray and what we've experienced. And team here thought it might be relevant for you guys as instructors. So yeah, there you go.
Hey, great. Thank you, Brad. We do have some questions. And if you have some more, pipe them in, whether it's about his presentation or more insights of Vooray. One of the questions that came up, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot because this is kind of an idea question. But somebody asked, any thoughts about how a college could use this to increase the size of their entering students?
Yes. So is this prospective students or current students?
Yeah, I think getting more students to the university is how I read the question.
I'm going to spitball here. That's what I do all day anyways, is just spitball. If I took the analogy of thinking of a university as a brand, and your prospective students are your prospective customers, again, the first thing for me is identify, all right, what makes your brand unique? And why is that going to make sense to a prospective student? Once you've done that, I think there's a ton of ways you can start building a community. Trying to put myself back in like a student perspective. That university should be on every social platform that exists. And it should be very active on every social platform that exists, especially those platforms being used by prospective students, right? Get on TikTok. Get your mascot on TikTok, right? Start creating a vibe. Because let's be honest, that's if you're going to sell a prospective student, you're not going to do it showcasing curriculum. Not yet, right? They're too new to the game. You're selling based on emotion. It's an experience they're going to have coming to that university. And so you've got to be able to portray that experience beyond, let me tell you what kind of jobs you're going to get afterwards. Let me tell you why our curriculum is better than, school XYZ. Make it look fun, right? Make it look like they're going to make friends there and create some really great relationships. I will say this right now, if you're not investing in video content, short video content, start. That's what your prospective students are looking at all day, every day. And there's a lot of great ways that a school could do that. So yes, absolutely. Get on those social media platforms. Again, figure out what makes your feeling of your campus, your university unique, and man, start shouting from the rooftops. Find current students who can help kind of, again, those are your VIPs. They're in the trenches right now. They're having those experiences. Get them talking about it. That's how you're going to get prospective students jazzed about coming and joining that party. So tons of ways you could do that. Yeah, I can go all day about that, but
I really like that. I think that, when you're talking to, 17, 18-year-olds who are about to go to college, it is definitely a different reason why they go to college than maybe in the middle of your sophomore year. And a lot of people change. And
they're not thinking about a salary yet. They should be.
They should be. Yeah. Hey, so one of the things, just kind of a question that I had, you work with a lot of marketers and probably a lot of young marketers. What skills is Vooray looking for in marketing hires out of college, and maybe what are they missing? Like, what could these educators be adding and doing to help them, prepare them for a job in a department, in a company like yours?
Question. Two things that I think are lacking in a lot of students coming out of college right now. One is the ability to write. I cannot stress this enough. We still live in a day and age where writing is huge. Copywriting, sales copy, short, engaging, succinct. I know it's being taught, but not enough students realize how valuable that skill set is in a marketplace. Think of a website, a product page. It's all copy, right? Your videos, yes, short videos, 100%. The next skill that I would say is huge is content, right? Content marketing. What creates a piece of content that's engaging for your customers? Most brands at my level, if I'm being honest, I've got an agency running my digital advertising, right? But the things that I can't outsource is anything that really impacts my brand. Writing is huge there. Content is huge, right? I'd love to have someone in here who, really was invested in like user experience, right? How does the flow of this page make sense? How am I keeping the customer engaged on a page? In our digital world, I cannot stress enough how big those two things are. So I would say content marketing, and within content marketing, the ability to write and write effectively is kind of becoming a bit of a lost art.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that was really good insight. That's something we look for as part of the interview process for new marketers is asking for writing samples, and especially when it comes to email and content writing. So good insight. Another educator asked, thinking about teaching consumerism to students, how do you teach them to look for real advertising and influencing? How do we look for brands like yours that are putting dollars towards positive influencing? Where do they start? How do you teach finding the right influences and people who are doing it for good?
As far as finding the companies, well, I'll say it this way. I grew up in Seattle and had a good family friend that arranged for me to sit down before I was, well, it might have been my freshman year of my undergrad. Sat down with one of the VPs of marketing at Microsoft. And he said something that I came in and I was dressed head to toe in Helly Hansen gear. Hadn't even thought about it. And the first thing this gentleman did, he sat down and said, "Why are you wearing that?" And I said, "Wearing what?" He said, "Wearing that jacket, wearing that hat." And I said, "I don't know, I like Helly Hansen." He's like, "Yeah, but why? Why do you like that?" And he said, "One of the best things you can do as a young marketer is to start to think about yourself really from like an outside perspective as a consumer. Why are you behaving the way you're behaving as a consumer?" And young marketers that do that are going to start to identify the mediums that really make them buy, the statements, the type of influencer that really creates trust and makes them buy. And as they follow that rabbit hole, they're going to start finding brands that are investing in those spaces. This is nothing new, but like young brands who are being run by younger people are probably going to be investing in younger mediums of social marketing, right? It's harder for a big ship to turn. So if you've got, marketing students who really want to strap their running shoes on and be nimble, then maybe a younger brand is kind of the way to go there. There's going to be a steeper learning curve, less in a way, kind of less formal training. But that's where a lot of these sort of innovative types of marketing are going to be used, because the brands have to be using them to compete. They can't use traditional marketing if they want to compete with guys that have billions of dollars to spend. So they're going to get scrappy, and they're going to be investing in, again, smaller groups, tight community, hyper engaged, micro influencers, things like that. So hopefully that answers the question, but that's it. That's kind of how I would approach that from my.
Yeah, I think that was a good, solid answer. A couple educators that wanted your opinion on the value of digital marketing certifications like HubSpot, Google Ads, Google Analytics. Are these types of certifications valuable in terms of higher salary, or if a new hire, like if someone would have a leg up?
They're not.
On somebody
and
else?
The reason is, this is going to sound bad. They're not difficult to get.
Yeah, to build on that, just even here at StuCamp, it's nice to have, but when we're looking for brand marketers, if we were hiring someone for digital marketing, digital analytics, it's something a little different. But a lot of our marketing team is brand marketers and strategy driven, and kind of same thing. It's great to have, but there's other intangibles that we look for that are.
And to piggyback on that, I think again the thing that I'm really looking for is, can you step out of your shoes and put yourself in your customer's shoes? That's empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you have empathy for the customer? If you can do that, so much of the rest of marketing, the to-dos, the check boxes become very easy at that point. If you can't make that connection with a customer, if you can't think like a customer, you're always going to struggle in marketing, always. And so
yes,
helping students kind of connect that gap. Take a step outside yourself. Why are you behaving the way you're behaving as a consumer? And figure out ways that if you're working for a company and maybe you're not the consumer, how do you bridge that gap with someone that you maybe don't have that much in common with, right? You start to develop those skills, you'll be successful wherever you go.
Yeah, I always tell our young marketers, don't even pretend to think you are our customer. It's just a safer spot to be.
Yeah.
Even especially at StuCamp, we're talking to educators, and none of us are educators, even though educating and marketing and being a brand manager are not the same role, and even though we're talking about the same thing, there's a lot of big different concerns. So having to be able to step out is a very important skill to have. One thing I just want to build on, and I just want to support, and you brought up micro versus macro. 100%, we big believer in that micro influencer. It does need to be at scale. A lot of times when you work with the macros too, it's hard because you're paying a premium, and unfortunately when you work with influencers, you pay for everyone, and they can charge a premium. Only 20% of maybe their followers might be your market, and you have to still pay for that 80%. Yeah. And a lot of times when you work
and that's a consequence of how the whole industry is, right? You had people that had influence, but they weren't doing this for a living. And as soon as people realize you can make money doing this, now you've got people who are, my job is going to be an influencer marketer, and I'm going to make money doing this. The second that it got introduced into the landscape, it just frankly ruined it for everybody, for the consumer, as well. And so it's getting more and more difficult to find people who, they'll take some money, they'll make some money. This isn't their living. They're not depending on this, right? And that's, again, it's why TikTok and the return there is diminishing so quickly, is because you had all these influencers doing it for a living, and they're like, great, new platform, new stepping stool, same game. And it's frustrating, but it's the reality we live in.
Yeah, it is what it is. Well, Brad, thank you so much. We're out of time. Really appreciate your insight into your own company and sharing those examples. This is what I think a lot of educators like to hear. I love to hear it myself, just to see what other people are doing and really seeing the metrics that it moves at your company and the way you went about it. So we really appreciate your time and for all the work you did preparing for this. And give a shout out to Vooray. Check them out. They've got some really great products.
We've got some cute bags, guys. And if anybody wants to connect afterwards, more questions, I know there were some I didn't get to. LinkedIn's a great way to get a hold of me. And in the first slide of this deck, I did put my email in there. Feel free to reach out.
Great. Hey, thank you so much, Brad. Really appreciate it.